I am 42 years old, a distinguished graduate of Columbia Business School's class of 2004. Back in my 20s, I landed a full-time junior analyst offer from one of Wall Street's most elite investment banks, six-figure starting salary, a clear, accelerated promotion track, a future bursting with boundless promise. Numbers came instinctively to me. Risk audits and deep due diligence were my core strengths, and I could pinpoint every hidden flaw buried inside a financial model in mere minutes. Yet I walked away from that blazing, once-in-a-lifetime career of my own volition. For 16 full years, I chose to fade quietly into the background, pouring every part of myself to build Ethan Hale's legacy, his brand, his billion-dollar tech conglomerate from the ground up. Ethan is 45, founder and chief executive officer of Hale Global Tech, a midtown Manhattan tech enterprise publicly listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Its operations span 3 major U.S. metropolitan hubs, with overseas divisions anchored in London and Singapore, widely hailed by industry insiders as a fast-rising emerging market powerhouse. We crossed paths during our postgraduate internship program. Back then, he owned nothing but a rough, half-baked business blueprint and a rented desk inside a scrappy Brooklyn startup incubator. I held every piece of industry insight, financial logic, and risk mitigation expertise he sorely lacked. It was I who reshaped his vague, hollow entrepreneurial vision into a complete, executable, scalable, investor-ready business framework. Through 16 years of marriage, I embodied the textbook perfect society wife, understated, poised, perpetually lingering outside the spotlight as Ethan's unshakable bedrock of support. No one realized this multi-billion-dollar public corporation was constructed brick by brick with my own 2 hands. Every early-stage budget worksheet, every fundraising pitch deck, every investor roadshow script was penned entirely by me. I hosted every corporate gala and shareholder dinner, nurtured all interpersonal bonds between board members' family circles, and wove invisible social capital for the firm through my delicate, intuitive people skills. I tended to our sprawling Westchester single-family mansion, ironed out every trivial hassle of his personal life, leaving him unburdened to charge forward and expand his business territory without distraction. I turned down promotion opportunities time and again, rejected exclusive industry resources tailor-made for me, and withdrew entirely from professional finance circles. I tied every shred of my self-worth to his milestones and success. Every finance magazine feature and corporate interview painted him as a self-made, resilient Manhattan business genius, never once acknowledging all my sacrifices and foundational contributions. I never argued, never harbored quiet resentment. Back then, I foolishly believed we walked side by side as equal life partners. His triumphs were mine, and we shared one unified future and shared destiny. Today marked our 16th wedding anniversary, a date I had never misremembered or neglected across 16 years of marriage. To prepare for this special day, I turned down my regular recurring charity luncheon and spent 3 full weeks crafting a heartfelt surprise gift. I shopped all across Manhattan's luxury retail districts to custom order a polished steel wristwatch engraved with our wedding date and a private phrase that had comforted me through countless lonely nights, built side by side. I also tracked down a limited edition 12-year single malt scotch he had coveted for years, an expensive vintage bottle I'd carefully picked out using our joint household account. My heart swelled with soft, quiet anticipation. All I wanted was to gift him a small, intimate sense of ritual amid his non-stop, grueling work schedule. Our marriage had long settled into a rigid, unyielding daily routine, every single rhythm calibrated around Ethan's packed executive timetable. He woke at 5 a.m. sharp to work out in our home gym, leaving the residence by 6:45 to beat Midtown Manhattan's brutal morning rush hour and head for his glass skyscraper office tower. His days were crammed nonstop with client meetings, high-stakes negotiations, and investor roadshow presentations, and he rarely stumbled back home before 8 p.m. whenever holidays or meaningful milestones rolled around. I always drove into the city to seek him out, hoping tiny, gentle gestures could ease the constant tension weighing heavy on his shoulders at work. At 3:45 that afternoon, I pulled out of the paved driveway of our sprawling Westchester mansion. New York's late autumn carried a soft, crisp chill, clear, unclouded sunlight filtered through the sky, coating Manhattan's dense forest of skyscrapers in warm, honeyed gold. A 40-minute smooth highway drive brought me to his corporate high-rise. I pulled into the private executive underground parking garage, swiped the exclusive access keycard he gifted me years prior, and rode the private nonstop elevator straight up to the 58th floor executive wing, bypassing all general staff zones and public security checkpoints to reach his private executive suite. The executive floor lay eerily quiet at this late weekday hour. All regular employee workstations sat empty, monitors powered down, overhead lights dimmed to a faint soft glow, stripping the space of its daytime bustle to leave a solemn, hushed atmosphere. Only the long-serving uniformed security guard stood posted at his front desk. He knew me well from years of frequent visits and only nodded politely, never prying with unnecessary questions. To every staff member here, I was the respected, mild-mannered CEO's wife, the most special, dignified recurring visitor to this top-tier corporate workspace. 16 years of constant companionship had etched his daily schedule into my bones, accurate down to the exact minute. His final client meeting wrapped at 4 that afternoon, leaving a full 30 minutes of unclaimed private downtime before his driver would shuttle him to JFK International Airport for an industry summit in Chicago. I timed my arrival perfectly, planning to slip quietly into his office, set down the wrapped gifts, and steal a small moment alone to mark our anniversary together. No grand crowds, no public fanfare, only quiet, sincere companionship amid endless professional busyness. I stepped across the thick plush carpet, moving slowly toward the corner executive office at the far end of the hallway. Frosted floor-to-ceiling glass blocked the full view of the room's interior, yet a thin narrow gap along the baseboard let every word of the ongoing conversation drift out crystal clear. My hand hovered inches from the wooden doorframe to knock, when a familiar male voice halted all my movement cold. It was Ethan's voice, stripped of the gentle fondness he usually reserved solely for me, tight, guarded, cold with calculating scheming. "You need to lay low for a while, Lena. You've been far too reckless and conspicuous, hanging right beside my desk during all-hands company assemblies, sending private personal messages during formal board sessions. You're being careless beyond belief." Claire's already growing suspicious. She seems soft and unassuming on the surface, but her eye for numbers and tiny overlooked details is sharper than anyone else's in this entire city. My fingers locked stiff midair, every drop of blood turning icy cold, a bone-deep frigid chill surging straight from my chest all the way down to my fingertips and toes. I knew Lena Carter all too well. 2 years prior, I'd personally sifted through dozens of submitted resumes, sat in on her final hiring interview, and hand-selected her to serve as Ethan's exclusive executive administrative secretary. I'd admired her organizational skill and consistent efficiency, personally approved her annual salary raises year after year, and sent her generous holiday cash bonuses, paired with handwritten thank you notes, grateful she took the crushing load of administrative busywork off Ethan's overloaded shoulders. At every corporate gala and charity fundraising event, she acted docile and obedient, bowing her head to greet me with glowing words of admiration and deference, never crossing a single unspoken line of professional propriety. I trusted her completely without a shred of doubt, never imagined beneath that meek, humble public exterior lurked such ravenous, sordid, unbridled ambition. The very next second, a young, soft, feminine tone seeped through the glass crack, shedding all manufactured timidity and deference to lay bare raw frustration, burning resentment, and unapologetic greed. "I'm sick of sneaking around in constant fear, Ethan. 3 full years of tiptoeing around every single day, deleting every chat log the instant I clock out of work, leaving the office 5 full minutes before you do each night, never daring a single casual, intimate gesture in public. When exactly will you deliver on the future you've been promising me nonstop?" She lives in a multi-million-dollar mansion, carries your last name, commands universal respect within every elite social circle, and basks in all the glory standing right behind you. Meanwhile, I'm trapped as your dirty little secret hidden away from the world. I refuse to wait one more day. I want to stand openly at your side for everyone to see and claim every single thing that rightfully belongs to me. Ethan's tone softened instantly, falling back into the tender warmth I'd known during our courtship, a practiced brand of gentle comfort meant solely to manipulate and pacify the woman standing before him. That soft warmth once reserved exclusively for me alone, had been handed over entirely to calm his mistress, and the sick thought churned bitter nausea deep in my stomach. I know how unbearably hard this is for you, baby. Just hold on a little longer, this final stretch. From this moment forward, we maintain total complete distance in all public settings. No flirty coffee runs to my desk, no secret private hand signals, no late-night text exchanges after hours. If Claire catches even a single crack in our cover story, everything we've built will crumble to dust instantly. His tone dropped sharply without warning, frigid with cruel, unforgiving calculation. Every syllable a sharp stab piercing my heart. You have absolutely no grasp of what she's truly capable of. She's a formally trained career financial analyst. She built this company's original core accounting system and every foundational risk control protocol entirely from scratch. If she grows the slightest bit suspicious, she will audit every single account, every asset, every property deed and transaction trail without mercy. Not one tiny loophole could ever slip past her sharp eye. The company's pushing forward a make-or-break critical merger acquisition right now. We cannot afford any damaging public scandal whatsoever. Once I've fully separated, transferred, and legally retitled every single asset, once all our long-laid plans lock firmly into permanent place, we won't have to hide anymore. At that point, I'll give you an official public title as my partner, everything you've ever wanted without limit. Fully separated, fully transferred, fully retitled. Those 3 short phrases drove a cold steel blade straight through 16 years of unbroken trust and wholehearted devotion. I'd never taken charge of our household and investment finances beyond routine grocery and utility spending, not out of ignorance or carelessness, but out of complete, unwavering faith in him. I'd assumed all our bank accounts, real estate holdings, and investment portfolios belonged to us equally, built side by side to secure our shared long-term future in retirement. I'd willingly stepped back from my own thriving career to fully support his corporate ascent, never guessing my blind trust and selfless compromise had become nothing more than disposable pawns in his elaborate predatory scheme. All those years of gentle domestic harmony and quiet contentment over the past 3 seasons had been nothing but a meticulously rehearsed performance designed to lull me into complacency while he plotted my complete ruin. I stood motionless in the silent, empty hallway for a full 2 minutes, no hot tears spilling down my cheeks, no visible trembling overtaking my frame. 16 years living as a wealthy high society matriarch, countless hours navigating elite charity and business galas, had carved unshakable calm and iron self-restraint deep into my bones. I'd navigated countless sudden corporate crises and smoothed over endless messy business conflicts. I'd mastered remaining outwardly unruffled and collected even when my entire private world crumbled to pieces inside my chest. The custom-engraved watch box and expensive vintage Scotch bottle clutched in my hands suddenly felt unbearably heavy, absurd, bitterly ironic. The anniversary surprise I'd poured weeks of careful effort and heartfelt planning into was nothing but a hollow, cruel joke. The man I'd sacrificed 16 years of youth, thriving career, and personal ambition to build up savored every comfort and stable security I single-handedly provided, all while secretly funneling away our shared wealth, cultivating a hidden long-term lover, and mapping out a cold, calculated plan to cast me out of our life together with absolutely nothing one day. This was no fleeting, impulsive one-time affair born from a momentary lapse of judgment. It was a years-long, step-by-step premeditated campaign designed to systematically strip me of every single thing I owned and valued. What he destroyed wasn't merely our sacred marriage vows. It was every ounce of my life's hard labor, every foundational pillar of financial and emotional security I'd built for myself over decades. Shock, crippling heartbreak, crushing despair. I forced every last wave of negative emotion deep down into the furthest recesses of my mind. Uncontrolled emotion was the weakest possible vulnerability, exactly the crack my opponents hoped to exploit to discredit me. The second I overheard their entire coordinated conspiracy, the soft, naive, forgiving wife I'd been for 16 years died completely. All that remained standing in her place was a sharp, clear-headed, decisive, unflinchingly ruthless professional financial analyst ready to fight back with every legal and factual weapon at my disposal. I wasted no more frozen time lingering in the hallway. I stepped forward, and shoved the frosted glass office door hard with one palm. The heavy metal frame slammed violently against the wall with a shrill, sharp, echoing crash, tearing apart the tender, ambiguous, romantic atmosphere inside and laying their sordid secret bare beneath the harsh, overhead office fluorescent lights for all to see. The sight laid out before my eyes was glaring, absurd, leaving zero room for weak excuses or half-truths. Lena Carter sat sprawled lazily across Ethan's custom solid mahogany executive desk, thin black stiletto heels dangling suspended in midair, legs crossed elegantly in a lazy, affectionate slouch. Ethan stood pressed tight up against her frame, hands braced flat on either side of the desk's edge to cage her completely in his arms, their bodies inches apart, breaths mingled in unmistakable intimate closeness. The split second our eyes locked across the room, they jolted apart as if burned by open flame, fumbling frantically to straighten their rumpled clothes and fix their disheveled postures in a desperate attempt to cover up what they'd been caught red-handed doing. It was far too late. Every tiny incriminating detail etched itself permanently into my vision as irrefutable, unarguable hard evidence. A pale rose-pink lipstick stain lingered prominently along Ethan's jawline, the exact exclusive shade Lena wore every single day, a color I'd never once touched or owned myself. The collar of Lena's silk blouse hung, unbuttoned 2 full buttons, revealing a delicate thin gold necklace resting against her collarbone. The previous Christmas holiday, Ethan had lied straight to my face and told me the necklace was a corporate client holiday gift for business relations, only to drape that exact piece of jewelry around his mistress's neck instead hours later. The roots of her dark hair were messy and ruffled, clear undeniable evidence of the passionate embraces and deep kisses they'd exchanged mere seconds before I burst through the door. Did I end that single split instant? I saw their true, unmasked faces with perfect, unclouded clarity. There were no innocent misunderstandings, no accidental missteps, no fleeting momentary lapse of moral judgment, only years of unbroken betrayal, deliberate deception, and shameless, unrestrained immorality. Ethan's first split-second reaction held not a single shred of genuine guilt, panicked remorse, or heartfelt apology, only ruthless selfishness and twisted blame-shifting. He quickly smoothed the creases out of his tailored designer suit, brushed away all visible traces of fluster and embarrassment, and instantly slipped back into his domineering, arrogant CEO persona, twisting every ounce of fault entirely onto my shoulders to deflect scrutiny from himself. "Claire, what on earth do you think you're doing bursting in here unannounced without permission?" His voice shot up sharp and angry, thick with accusatory irritation and simmering rage. "This is my private executive office, a dedicated space for core confidential company business. You barged in without prior clearance, disrupting critical high-stakes work and cutting off a vital professional discussion mid-conversation. This is wildly inappropriate, immature, and completely unreasonable behavior." I stood silent in the office doorway, cold gray eyes sweeping slowly over their disheveled, guilty forms, my facial features smooth and unchanging, not a single flicker of emotion crossing my expression. I just overheard him plotting to hide marital assets and divorce me penniless, just caught him tangled up intimately with his own secretary, and he dared to lecture me on overstepping professional boundaries and disrupting his work. Such blatant reversal of right and wrong stripped away the last faint flicker of soft compassion I'd ever held for him deep inside my heart. At the exact same time, Lena immediately launched into an award-worthy masterclass fake innocent act, her performance polished and flawlessly rehearsed from years of practice. She scrambled hastily down off the wooden desk, fingers fumbling rapidly to button her silk blouse shut, quickly smoothing out her messy tangled hair. Her eyes instantly welled up with glistening fake tears, her lower lip trembling on cue, putting on a terrified, wrong display of helpless vulnerability, embodying the image of a bullied, overworked junior staff member to absolute perfection. "Mrs. Hale, I am truly, endlessly sorry. This is entirely 100% my fault alone. I made a catastrophic critical error processing a core client financial report earlier today and broke down crying out of overwhelming workplace stress. Mr. Hale was only acting out of his official supervisor duty, offering patient guidance to walk me through fixing my mistakes. There was absolutely nothing inappropriate or unprofessional between us whatsoever. Please do not misunderstand him or place any blame upon him. Every single misstep is mine and mine alone. Every humble, self-deprecating line was a carefully crafted, calculated lie. On the surface, she pretended to take all blame fully onto herself, yet she subtly cleared Ethan of every shred of wrongdoing, painting herself as a fragile, overwhelmed entry-level employee and him as a compassionate, responsible, devoted boss. Without uttering a single direct word against me, she framed me as an overly sensitive, irrational wife prone to groundless, jealous paranoia and baseless wild accusations. I watched her pitiful stage performance with cold, detached disdain welling up inside my chest. 3 full years of secret after-hours trysts, 3 years of coordinated plotted asset theft, 3 years of hidden financial manipulation. Their toxic codependent bond ran deep, rooted entirely in shared deception and greed. This sudden manufactured display of pure, rigid professional propriety felt utterly repulsive to witness. I refused to scream, cry, or launch a public screaming match and dramatic confrontation right then and there. Loud emotional outbursts were a weak person's useless outlet, exactly the pre-planned scenario they'd anticipated and prepared for in advance to label me mentally unstable and irrational, seizing the moral and public opinion high ground entirely for themselves. I would never hand them that satisfying victory. I stepped calmly deeper into the office, the sharp, steady click of my stiletto heels against polished marble, slow and unhurried, carrying the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone fully in absolute command of the entire situation. I set the unopened Scotch bottle and engraved watch gift box lightly down onto the guest armchair beside the desk, every single movement slow, calm, completely unruffled and composed. I came to drop off a gift for our 16th wedding anniversary. My voice remained flat, neutral, carrying zero hint of joy, sorrow, anger, or hurt. I followed your official published public schedule and knew your 4 o'clock client meeting had drawn to a close, hoping to surprise you with a small gift. It seems you had private personal matters to attend to behind closed doors. I apologize for intruding uninvited. My total unwavering composure threw Ethan entirely off his carefully pre-written script of accusations and blame. A flicker of genuine panic crossed his eyes for a split second, quickly replaced by deeper irritation and aggressive posturing as he pressed forward relentlessly, attempting to overwhelm me with his authoritative status and manipulative emotional gaslighting tactics. This is the fundamental core flaw running through our entire marriage, Claire. You're always inventing wild, unfounded assumptions and jumping to catastrophic conclusions instead of thinking logically and extending basic trust toward me. Separating personal private life and professional corporate business has been my core unbreakable principle for many years, yet you keep storming into my workplace repeatedly to indulge unfounded jealous suspicions, ignoring my critical work responsibilities and public professional image time and time again. After 16 full years of marriage, you still refuse to place even a shred of trust in me. Trust. That single light, weightless word rolled off his tongue as easily as breathing, steeped in bitter, suffocating irony. A man who betrayed me every single night behind my back, schemed against me behind closed office doors, and secretly stole decades of my hard-earned accumulated wealth dared to stand right there and lecture me about lacking basic trust. No manufactured lie in the entire world could ever compare to that level of absurd hypocrisy. I nodded my head faintly, feigning outward compliance and humble surrender while ice-cold bitterness settled deep into every bone in my body. You're completely right. I acted thoughtlessly and misread the purely professional dynamic between you and Lena. I shouldn't have rushed in unannounced and jumped to ungrounded conclusions. I'll head back home now, and we can talk this entire matter through properly once you return from your Chicago business trip later this week. I did not spare either of them a single extra lingering glance, turning on my heel to walk away with steady, unhurried steps, no trace of embarrassment, defeat or heartbreak weighing on my shoulders. I pulled the glass office door shut gently behind me, sealing off their awkward, sordid little bubble of lies, and burying 16 years of blind devotion and naive, unconditional love alongside it forever. The private elevator descended slowly down the glass shaft, the enclosed metal walls blocking all outside sightlines completely. In that confined, isolated space, the gentle, docile, family-focused wife mask I'd worn faithfully for 16 long years shattered irreparably into 1,000 tiny pieces. What remained standing in its place was the sharp, unyielding, razor-edged resolve of a trained Wall Street financial analyst ready to wage a methodical, unforgiving battle for everything that had been stolen from me. I was not retreating out of surrender or defeat. I was simply stepping back to regroup, gather my evidence, and craft my precise counterattack plan. Screaming, fighting, and dramatic public scenes were the most useless, foolish way possible to resolve this high-stakes conflict. They excelled masterfully at emotional manipulation, mass public opinion control, and moral gaslighting to twist reality in their favor. I would reject their pre-written playbook entirely and beat them at the very game they valued above all else: hard numerical data, tangible irrefutable evidence, binding legal statute, and unassailable factual power to dismantle every last one of their greedy, predatory schemes piece by piece. They foolishly assumed that after 16 full years removed from the active professional finance workforce, my sharp analytical edge had dulled beyond repair, that I was ignorant, sheltered and easy prey to manipulate. They thought my gentle, tolerant natural disposition meant I would silently swallow endless betrayal and financial exploitation, with nowhere to turn at 42 years old to push back against their unfair, one-sided divorce settlement demands. They forgot one critical, irreversible truth. I built his multi-billion-dollar corporate empire from the absolute ground up with my own expertise in labor. I personally taught him every single method of capital operation, risk mitigation, and asset structuring he uses to build his wealth. Nearly every professional skill, every source of industry prestige, every sneaky trick he used to scheme and manipulate against me originated entirely from my guidance and selfless sacrifice. From that exact moment onward, I resolved to conduct the most thorough, unforgiving financial and personal audit of my entire adult life, the audit of his hollow, broken, fraudulent marriage built entirely on my wasted labor and blind trust. I would recover every single asset stolen from me, every possession pilfered through deliberate trickery, every professional and personal opportunity they'd schemed relentlessly to take away and hoard for themselves. I was not retreating in defeat. I was merely lying low, gathering strength for my comeback. Tears, screaming matches, and dramatic scenes would never fix anything. They were the stupidest, most ineffective recourse imaginable. They excelled at emotional manipulation, spinning public opinion, and laying on guilt trips, so I would step outside their playbook and beat them with the very things they prided themselves on: hard data, irrefutable evidence, the full force of the law, and unshakable authority to dismantle every last one of their schemes. They thought years spent running the household, away from corporate life, had dulled my edge and left me ignorant and easy to manipulate. They believed my gentle, compliant nature and habit of swallowing hardship meant I would quietly endure betrayal and financial plunder. They figured at 42, I had nowhere left to turn, forced to accept whatever crumbs they deigned to toss my way as a settlement. What they'd forgotten was that I had built his corporate empire brick by brick with my own two hands. I was the one who taught him capital deployment, risk mitigation, and asset structuring. Nearly every skill he possessed, every ounce of prestige he'd earned, every underhanded tactic he used to plot against me had originated from my guidance and selfless sacrifice. From that moment forward, I resolved to launch the most exhaustive, unsparing, unforgiving audit of my entire life. An audit of his hollow, fractured marriage built on a facade of perfect happiness. I would recover every asset they'd looted, stolen, and schemed to seize from me. I stayed awake the entire night. The 40-minute drive back to my Westchester mansion from Midtown Manhattan passed in total silence. The glittering skyline of the city faded behind me as the sun dipped low, gilding the frame of my car, yet none of that warmth could seep into my frozen heart. The sprawling single-family estate boasted exquisite custom finishes, lavish furnishings, and immaculate upkeep. The grounds were serene, soft lamplight spilling through every window, a dream home envied by every socialite in our circle. But only I knew this gilded cage harbored the ugliest betrayal and coldest, most calculated treachery imaginable. All household staff had clocked out hours earlier, leaving the house so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I set the unclaimed anniversary gift and pricey bottle of single malt down on the solid mahogany dining table. What had once filled me with eager, tender anticipation now felt nothing but desolate and bitterly ironic. I turned away without a second glance, casting aside all sentimental grief, tamping down every flicker of emotion, and devoting my full focus to this silent, high-stakes battle. Over our 16 years of marriage, Ethan had held absolute, sole control over every dollar of our finances. He'd repeated the same line to me day in and day out. Managing the assets of a wealthy family was endlessly complex, fraught with risk, and mentally draining. He claimed he couldn't bear to burden me with tedious bookkeeping chores, wanting only for me to enjoy life, tend to the home, and nurture our elite social connections. He framed his total monopoly over our finances as boundless love and protection, freeing me from the stress of daily bills and asset risk management alike. I'd never questioned him, trusting him completely without reservation. Every bank document, investment statement, property deed, and wealth management contract he slid across the table I signed without reading the fine print. I'd always believed husband and wife were a single unit, all wealth shared equally, our triumphs and hardships intertwined as one. I never suspected that over years of quiet coexistence, he'd woven an elaborate trap around me, siphoning our joint fortune bit by bit behind my back. I locked the door to my private second-floor study, shutting out all outside distractions, and flipped on every overhead light. This study was my one exclusive sanctuary within the home, outfitted with a commercial-grade encrypted safe, high-precision printer, and dual-screen secure workstation linked to every confidential household financial portal. My last line of defense, my battlefield. I proceeded with my audit in methodical order. First, I pulled every stack of physical paperwork from the safe, sorting and filing them chronologically year by year. Bank statements, tax filings, property titles, investment agreements, loan contracts. The towering pile of documents spanned more than a decade, chronicling the life we'd built side by side, while also laying bare his slow, methodical plot against me. Next, I logged into every encrypted financial portal, cross-referencing our joint checking accounts, personal investment portfolios, corporate-linked private bank accounts, property title databases, and tax filing backends, expanding my audit window to cover the previous 5 years. I knew this premeditated scheme hadn't sprouted overnight. Such elaborate manipulation required slow, incremental planning, and only a multi-year review could unearth every hidden loophole and damning piece of evidence. Decades of professional training were etched into my bones. I approached this personal audit with the same cold, granular rigor I brought to top-tier corporate risk assessments, cross-referencing every transaction line item, sorting evidence by category, and filing every record without skipping a single transfer, contract, or irregularity. I stripped all sentiment from my mind, seeing nothing but raw data, tangible proof, and unvarnished truth. It took merely 10 minutes to uncover the first devastating, undeniable red flag. Starting the exact month Lena was hired, for 3 consecutive years without fail, a fixed wire transfer of $15,000 hit Lena's personal account on the 15th of every single month. 36 identical transfers, no payment notes, no business justification, no tie to corporate services, transactions suspiciously blank, deliberately concealed from scrutiny. I tallied the total calmly, $54,000 siphoned away over 3 years. This was unambiguous, unlawful diversion of marital joint assets, our shared life savings spent to fund his extramarital affair and sustain their hidden romance. My face remained completely impassive as I logged each transfer date, exact dollar amount, transaction ID, and receiving account number into an encrypted spreadsheet, labeling each entry clearly: unauthorized diversion of marital assets, beneficiary, Lena Carter, responsible party, Ethan Hale. This was only the tip of the iceberg. I knew far larger crimes and far greater stolen wealth waited buried deeper in the records. I dug further, filtering all lump sum large transfers, credit card charges, and corporate-linked expenditures, uncovering an ever-growing catalog of horrifying proof. A $50,000 untagged cash gift on Lena's 24th birthday, a $75,000 private wire transfer 2 Christmases prior, a $100,000 payment labeled top performer bonus with 0 HR filings, No formal performance reviews, no company-wide announcements, outright embezzlement of corporate funds disguised as employee compensation to funnel cash straight to his mistress. Cash transfers were just the beginning. Endless luxury goods and leisure charges piled up. Full diamond necklace, bracelet, and earring sets purchased at Fifth Avenue's premier jewelers, receipts for designer handbags from Chanel and Hermes, first-class round-trip European airfare, and folio billing for five-star hotels in Paris and Mykonos. Every single expense was charged to our shared marital credit cards, paid for with assets we built together, bankrolling another woman's lavish lifestyle. What stung even deeper was 18 months of monthly rent payments of $4,500 for a luxury one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan's Soho district, a private love nest Ethan had leased exclusively for Lena. Every rent check drew from our joint marital funds, a secret, costly arrangement to house his lover in plain sight. The theft of liquid money was unforgivable enough, yet the most vicious, fatal component of his plot lay in the covert transfer of real estate, his master plan to leave me with zero property in a divorce, penniless and dispossessed. Excluding our primary Westchester residence, we'd purchased 3 core income-generating properties over the course of our marriage, 2 high-rise condominiums in Brooklyn, each valued at $700,000, plus an oceanfront vacation villa in the Hamptons worth $900,000. Combined, these 3 holdings totaled $2,300,000 in value, our primary long-term real estate investments built through years of frugality and steady saving, the bedrock of my financial security in later life. I pulled official county title records for each property, and the last flicker of fragile hope inside me shattered entirely. 18 months prior, Ethan had exploited loopholes embedded within New York's marital property statutes, coordinating with the firm's in-house legal team to quietly rewrite all 3 property deeds without my knowledge, signature, or written consent. Every asset jointly owned during our marriage had been retitled solely under his individual name. He'd bypassed every mandatory spousal notification rule and joint property filing requirement in full, stripping me of all legal ownership rights to the real estate we'd bought as a team. The process was professionally executed, meticulously concealed, and planned over months. This was no impulsive mistake, but a premeditated legal fraud designed to rob me blind by the end of my all-night audit, the full truth stood laid bare before me. This was no fleeting one-off extramarital fling. It was a 3-year-long, layered, interconnected systemic plunder of our marital assets. While reaping the rewards of a stable home, elite social connections, corporate foundation, and spotless public reputation I'd single-handedly provided him, he secretly drained cash reserves, rewrote property titles, and hid liquid wealth to strip me of every legal marital right piece by piece. His ultimate goal had never simply been falling for another woman. He intended to squeeze every ounce of value from me, steal every asset I'd helped build, erase every sacrifice I'd made, then file for divorce with zero financial liability on his end. I would walk away after 16 years of backbreaking labor with absolutely nothing, while he walked off with millions to start a new life with his mistress. At 3 o'clock in the morning, my evidence spreadsheet was fully organized, cross-referenced, and finalized. Over 3 years, more than $800,000 had been squandered on cash gifts and luxury spending for Lena, alongside $2,300,000 in real estate illegally transferred out of joint ownership. In total, more than $3 million of our shared marital assets had been unlawfully diverted, seized, and misappropriated. Every wire transfer, legal document, and title change bore verified timestamps, official government filing numbers, forming an unbroken, irrefutable chain of evidence, crystal clear, authentic, and impossible to dispute. The secure, prosperous, shared future I'd once envisioned had been nothing more than my own delusion. He'd worn a mask of gentle devotion for 16 years, spending 3 full years, quietly draining our joint fortune to abandon, rob, and destroy me entirely. I felt no breakdown, no moment of weakness, only ice-cold clarity. That night I backed up every piece of evidence 3 separate ways: encrypted cloud storage, offline hard drive archives, and physical printed filing folders, layered safeguards to eliminate any risk of deletion, loss, or tampering. Every piece of evidence formed a complete, legally admissible chain powerful enough to shatter every layer of his deception in civil court on Wall Street, and in the court of public opinion alike. 16 years of loyal devotion vanished completely from my heart. From that night forward, I held no love, no longing, no mercy, only strategic combat, pursuit of justice, and a reckoning to reclaim what was mine. I intended to utilize every legal avenue available to recover every asset that belonged to me, forcing him to pay the steepest possible price for his greed and betrayal. Dawn broke, pale morning light filtering through the wooded mist surrounding Westchester and spilling into my empty study. I hadn't slept a wink, yet exhaustion never touched me. Only sharp, unyielding resolve burned bright behind my eyes. My financial evidence was fully cataloged and secured, every hidden asset leak identified. The next critical step remained, securing direct audio proof of their deliberate collusion to commit marital fraud and destroy my life, testimony to cement their malicious intent beyond all reasonable doubt. I placed an immediate early morning call to Margaret Voss. Margaret was Manhattan's preeminent high-net-worth matrimonial litigator, with over 20 years specializing in marital asset fraud, hidden executive wealth, and spousal conspiracy cases targeting elite Wall Street power brokers. Her track record boasted a 98% win rate. Every client she represented was a woman betrayed, exploited, and financially ruined by wealthy, influential husbands. She specialized in tearing down the polished public facades of corporate elites, dismantling their asset-hiding schemes, and securing full financial restitution for wronged wives. Her law firm occupied the 35th floor of Midtown Manhattan's legal tower, operating with absolute discretion, no public walk-in lobby, no online case listings, no excess client records archived anywhere online, exclusively handling confidential high-stakes disputes with unmatched privacy and legal expertise. I dialed her emergency priority line at 6:15 a.m., laying out the core facts concisely. NYSE-listed tech CEO husband, 3-year extramarital affair, over $3 million in hidden and transferred marital assets, premeditated marital fraud, requesting an emergency in-person consultation to secure and finalize all evidence into an airtight legal case. Less than 10 minutes later, Margaret returned my call, her tone concise, sharp, and steady, skipping all trivial small talk to cut straight to critical logistics. We locked in an 8 a.m. emergency meeting. I gathered all physical paperwork, digital bank records, and property title evidence, packed my bag, and set off 15 minutes early to avoid morning rush hour crowds, taking every precaution to travel unseen and avoid drawing unwanted attention. Seated in her private conference room, I did not waste time crying or venting about heartbreak. I presented my case with the same organized, objective clarity I used delivering financial reports to investors or boardrooms, laying out the full timeline and complete chain of tangible evidence step by step. Defendant Ethan Hale, CEO of Hale Global Tech, maintained a 3-year extramarital affair with his direct executive secretary Lena Carter. He diverted more than $800,000 of joint marital assets through recurring monthly transfers, large one-time gifts, falsified corporate bonus payments, and unauthorized luxury spending. Additionally, he secretly retitled 3 jointly owned residential properties into his sole name, stripping me of all legal ownership rights to our shared real estate, with total affected assets exceeding $3 million. The two acted in pre-planned collusion to hide all wealth transfers, intending to force a zero-asset divorce once their scheme finished unfolding, leaving me with no financial compensation whatsoever. I met Margaret's gaze, my voice firm and unwavering. I hold complete paper trails of all bank transfers, title changes, and transaction receipts. Tangible objective evidence is fully secured. What I lack is the critical subjective proof, audio recordings capturing the two openly admitting their coordinated fraud, their plan to ruin me, and their deliberate scheme to hide marital assets. I need legally admissible audio testimony to seal the case shut, leaving them no room to deny or refute their conspiracy. Margaret had handled hundreds of identical elite spousal fraud cases and remained unfazed by the scale of Ethan's crimes. She immediately walked me through New York State's audio recording legal statutes, outlining the safest, unassailable evidence-gathering strategy with zero risk of evidence being thrown out in court. New York is a one-party consent recording state. As a legal co-owner of all marital property, Recordings captured inside our shared family home and within the public shared areas of his corporate office are fully legal, fully admissible in civil divorce litigation, asset recovery lawsuits, executive malfeasance corporate investigations, and shareholder legal claims alike. We will rely solely on audio-only capture, no unauthorized hidden video footage that could create privacy infringement challenges. All recording hardware is fully court-approved. Every audio file auto-encrypts on capture with immutable timestamp markers, third-party notarized backup archives, and full audit trails for every recording session. The resulting evidence chain will be flawless, airtight, impossible for opposing legal counsel to discredit or invalidate. At 9 a.m. the same morning, Margaret's firm's forensic technical team traveled first to my Westchester residence, then to Ethan's Midtown executive office, installing tiny USB-sized hidden recording devices with zero visible lights, zero background hum, completely camouflaged within furniture and office decor. The equipment captured crystal-clear audio, auto-encrypted every file the second it recorded, and synced remotely to secure off-site servers for round-the-clock monitoring and backup. Devices were placed in 3 high-value capture zones: my second-floor home study, the main ground-floor living room, and the private guest lounge inside Ethan's executive suite. All locations counted as shared public space within the home and office, fully compliant with state recording laws, perfectly positioned to capture every private conversation and plotting session the two held together. By noon, all hardware testing finished, the remote monitoring portal went live, and our formal evidence collection operation officially launched. I held complete paper financial evidence, paired with incoming recorded witness testimony, and the odds of securing a full, decisive legal victory sat firmly in my favor. Over the next 10 days, I buried every trace of anger and retaliatory intent, slipping seamlessly back into my old role as the quiet, docile, family-focused socialite wife, maintaining every regular daily routine without a single suspicious slip-up. I woke each morning promptly to prepare Ethan's breakfast and brew his coffee, speaking softly to remind him to rest and pace himself amid heavy corporate workloads. I attended every charity committee meeting, neighborhood ladies' luncheon, and elite social event as usual, sustaining my polished, poised reputation as the perfect CO spouse. Each night I waited for him to return home, listening patiently as he rambled about office conflicts and corporate strategy, never questioning his late nights, overnight business trips, or unaccounted for gaps in his schedule, never voicing a single word of doubt or complaint. My extreme passivity and unwavering compliance fully dulled Ethan's wariness. He grew far more reckless, bold, and unrestrained, dropping every last shred of caution, fully convinced I remained the same naive, trusting housewife completely dependent on him with nowhere else to turn. He no longer bothered hiding late-night private phone calls with Lena, stopped erasing suspicious credit card and bank activity records, and openly discussed internal corporate finances within earshot of me. He even regularly praised Lena's supposed work talent and meticulous attention to detail right in front of me, his tone laced with obvious favoritism and fondness, openly testing how much disrespect I would tolerate without pushing back. Every night, long after Ethan fell asleep, I logged into the encrypted remote server portal to download all recorded audio files from that day, syncing full duplicate copies to Margaret's confidential firm servers for her legal team to sort, timestamp, and archive permanently. Hour upon hour of crisp, unedited audio captured every malicious, calculated conversation between Ethan and Lena, forming the final unbreakable proof of their coordinated criminal plot against me. I heard them dissect methods to split wire transfers into smaller amounts to avoid bank anti-fraud flagging, planning to cash out all remaining joint investment portfolios, and hide the proceeds entirely from me. They discussed establishing offshore anonymous bank accounts by year's end to siphon off every last liquid marital asset, cutting me off from all financial resources permanently. They locked in a strict timeline. Once the annual shareholder meeting concluded and the company's large merger fully finalized, once every hidden asset had been legally retitled and laundered untraceably, Ethan would immediately file for divorce. They planned to manufacture fabricated negative media coverage to paint me as mentally unstable and vindictive, stripping me of all financial compensation, social standing, and dignity to force a humiliating, asset-free settlement. Lena's voice dripped with unbridled mockery and contempt for 16 years of my devotion and sacrifice. She scoffed at my outdated socialite lifestyle, my 16 years stepping away from my promising Wall Street career, calling me foolish and blind for devoting my entire life to building Ethan's empire while being easily discarded. She expressed absolute certainty I possessed no ability to fight back, that I would simply swallow all heartbreak and walk away silently once confronted with their scheme. She's so easy to manipulate, soft, passive, spent her whole life revolving around a husband and a household. No professional skills, no industry connections, no safety net. Even if she figures out what we're doing, what could she possibly do? She'll just swallow all the hurt and step down quietly. Ethan fully agreed with every cruel assessment, dismissing every ounce of hard work and sacrifice I'd poured into his life without a shred of gratitude. He admitted keeping me around for 16 years had never stemmed from love. I had only filled a functional role as a photogenic, family-focused spouse to bolster his wholesome public brand, a well-connected socialite to nurture elite business relationships, a silent backdrop to reinforce his trustworthy CEO image to investors and the board of directors. She serves no purpose beyond that. Once all our assets are secured under my name and we've wrapped up the merger, she's completely useless to us, disposable, replaceable at any time. Worse still, the two had pre-planned a comprehensive smear campaign to destroy my reputation if I dared contest their divorce settlement or pursue legal action. They plotted to leak fabricated negative gossip to Manhattan lifestyle and financial tabloids, planting false stories labeling me paranoid, emotionally volatile, mentally unbalanced, a bitter, unreasonable ex-wife consumed by jealousy. They also intended to leverage the company's vast capital and extensive elite social network to block every professional and social opportunity open to me within New York's upper class and Wall Street circles, isolating me completely, cutting off every potential ally or career path until I surrendered out of desperation. Over 10 days, dozens of hours of fully encrypted, time-stamped, third-party notarized audio captured every word of their plotting, betrayal, slanderous planning, and predatory scheme to defraud me of my marital rights and destroy my public character. The full audio archive legally proved their premeditated marital fraud, coordinated conspiracy to steal assets, intentional character assassination plot, and years of exploitative manipulation. After reviewing the complete audio evidence library, Margaret delivered a clear verdict. Our case was ironclad beyond any reasonable doubt. Full financial restitution, punitive damages, and formal legal sanctions against Ethan and Lena were all guaranteed courtroom outcomes. I held every winning card in my hand, yet I chose not to strike immediately. I understood human greed and arrogance all too well. Their overconfidence would drive them to make one final reckless, self-damaging move that would complete my perfect chain of evidence and seal their irreversible ruin. Their unchecked conceit would hand me the final critical piece of proof I needed to expose their entire scheme and destroy their public standing entirely. 7 days after we finished installing the recording devices, a quiet Tuesday afternoon, warm autumn sunlight filled every room of the estate. All household staff had taken the day off, leaving the mansion empty save for me, silent and alone. Ethan was locked inside an all-day cross-department executive off-site meeting with zero cell service or opportunity to leave, an unmissable window I'd anticipated for weeks. At 2 p.m. sharp, the estate's front door intercom buzzed sharply. Our gated home sat within an exclusive, low-traffic neighborhood. Every relative, neighbor, or business associate always scheduled visits days in advance, never dropping by unannounced. I knew instantly who waited outside, and what confrontation she intended to force upon me. I pulled up the live security camera feed on my phone, and Lena's figure filled the screen. She wore a tailored black business pantsuit paired with sharp designer stilettos, her makeup polished, hair neatly styled, projecting a false air of competent professionalism. Gone was the meek, deferential secretary I'd known for years. Her posture stood tall and arrogant, her gaze sharp with unbridled greed and unshakable confidence that victory already belonged to her. This marked her first uninvited, unplanned intrusion into my private family home. This was no accidental visit, but a deliberate declaration of war and a direct attempt to pressure me into surrender. I tapped one button on my phone to activate the hidden living room recording system, triggering lossless high-definition audio capture with instant cloud encryption and automatic permanent backup. I confirmed the recording hardware operated flawlessly, every word of our upcoming confrontation secured as legally admissible courtroom proof, then stepped forward to unlock and open the front door. "Lena!" My tone remained flat, neutral, no flicker of surprise, anger, or hostility, addressing her as one would a random unfamiliar stranger. "What brings you here today?" She completely disregarded my status as the homeowner and stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, the sharp tap of her heels against polished hardwood echoing loud and arrogant through the quiet entryway. She slowly scanned the luxurious living room, custom Italian furniture, original fine art oil paintings, crystal chandeliers, framed family portraits covering the walls, her eyes lingering greedily over every possession that belonged to me, overflowing with envy and a ravenous desire to seize my entire life for herself. She hated every comfort, every status symbol, every stable, secure life I'd built over 16 years. Her sole purpose in visiting unannounced was to strip everything away from me, to take my marriage, my home, my social title, my entire identity, and replace me entirely. She turned to face me, dropping every last pretense of meekness, stripping away all gentle, humble masks. Her stare turned harsh, her posture domineering, her voice laced with unearned pride and unshakable certainty as she openly declared her intentions and challenged me directly. "Claire, I didn't come here to beat around the bush or put on fake polite performances. Let's be completely honest with each other." She tilted her chin upward, tone haughty and triumphant. "I'm 12 weeks pregnant with Ethan's child." The fabricated bombshell landed with deliberate provocative intent. She fully expected me to spiral into shock, grief, and panic, believing the news of a pregnancy would break my resolve and force me to back down voluntarily. I remained calm, my facial features completely unchanging, no shock registering in my eyes. I watched her hollow performance in silence, letting her spill every last detail of their shared scheme, every threat they planned to use against me, every word captured permanently on recording to strengthen my legal case against them both. "Ethan hasn't loved you for many years now." Her voice grew louder, more arrogant, fully confident in her position. "He only stayed married to you all these years to protect the company's stock price, secure trust from shareholders, and maintain a spotless public persona. You exist solely as a prop to prop up his image as a stable, family-oriented CEO, a decorative ornament for public appearances and charity events. He's truly in love with me. Our future family, his career, and every future milestone will all be tied to me. We'll raise our child together and build a genuine happy household. Once you step aside, I'll move into this mansion, take your place as Mrs. Hale, stand beside Ethan at every corporate event, and hold control over every asset you once owned." I spoke softly, my tone mild and unthreatening, carefully guiding her to lay out their full plot on record and solidify every piece of self-incriminating evidence. "So what exactly do you want me to do now that you're here?" A smug, greedy smile spread across her face, her eyes dark with malice, as she laid out their non-negotiable ultimatum and spelled out every threat they planned to unleash against me. "It's simple. File divorce paperwork voluntarily, agree to a full asset waiver, make no claims to property, no demand for financial compensation, create zero public scandal, and walk away quietly to preserve whatever tiny shred of dignity you have left. If you comply obediently, we'll leave you alone and won't go out of our way to harm you. But if you choose to fight us, contest the divorce, or refuse to surrender everything you own, Ethan will destroy you completely." She advanced one step closer, her voice cold and menacing, openly detailing their pre-planned campaign to ruin my life. "He'll deploy every resource of his wealth, industry connections, and media contacts to paint you as paranoid, emotionally unstable, a bitter, irrational ex-wife to every journalist and social acquaintance in Manhattan. You'll lose all credibility. No one will believe a single word you say. He'll cut off every professional and social avenue open to you within New York's elite circles, leaving you isolated and alone. In the end, you'll walk away with zero money, no assets, forced to leave the city destitute and humiliated. You're 42 years old, 16 years removed from professional work. You have no marketable career skills, No personal network to rely on, no safety net to fall back on, you stand zero chance of winning a fight against us. You be wise to accept reality and surrender peacefully. Beyond blatant threats, she openly confessed full participation in every act of marital asset fraud and hidden wealth transfer, legally implicating herself as a co-conspirator to every crime Ethan committed against me. She bragged openly about the secret Soho apartment Ethan funded exclusively with our joint money, endless luxury jewelry, and designer gifts purchased with our shared marital funds, and the offshore anonymous asset pool they were actively building to hide all remaining liquid wealth. She admitted plainly every single asset I'd built and owned jointly with Ethan had already been secretly transferred, spent, or retitled under their control. You've clung to this empty marriage and fake perfect life for 16 years, pouring all your time and labor into building his empire. In the end, every achievement, every fortune, every shred of glory will belong to me. You're nothing more than a disposable stepping stone on our path to the top. Every word dripped with arrogance and venom, her greed and moral depravity laid bare without restraint, handing me a perfect, fatal piece of recorded evidence that tied both her and Ethan irrevocably to every crime they'd committed. I watched her self-satisfied, insolent expression, nothing but cold scorn stirring inside my chest. She saw herself as the inevitable victor, convinced she could easily overpower and replace me. What she failed to grasp was that her unprovoked visit, brazen threats, and unguarded self-incrimination had closed every remaining loophole in my evidence chain, burning every escape route they might have clung to. I feigned exhaustion and reluctant compromise, speaking in a quiet, weary tone. I understand. I'll take time to think over everything you've said. You can head home now. She turned and strode away with the haughty smirk of a conqueror, fully convinced I'd been intimidated into submission, certain she would soon claim my title, my home, and my life for good. The second the front door latched shut, I immediately saved, encrypted, and backed up the full audio recording, syncing a permanent copy with one tap to Margaret's top-secret legal server, cementing this critical, unassailable courtroom exhibit for good. With this recording secured, my case for justice was fully, irreversibly complete. Financial ledgers, property title transfers, secret conspiracy recordings, this in-person act of hostile intimidation, fabricated pregnancy claim, and threats of reputational ruin stacked layer upon layer to form an unbreakable body of proof, irrefutable, unimpeachable, impossible to overturn in court. I held every trump card, ready to wait for the perfect moment to strike and claim what was mine. New York's late autumn hung heavy over Midtown Manhattan, gray-blue skies framing the towering glass skyscrapers of the financial district. The annual shareholders' meeting for Hale Global Tech opened to a packed 1,000-seat ballroom inside a landmark luxury hotel. This was Ethan Hale's one annual moment in the spotlight, his grand stage to shine. The venue was filled to capacity. More than 300 retail and institutional shareholders, Wall Street analysts, and financial journalists packed every row, bathed in brilliant stage, lighting amid a sea of wealthy industry figures. Every camera, lens locked onto the man seated center stage at the podium, clad in a custom black, high-tailored suit, tall and poised, the quiet self-assurance of a man who'd controlled billions in capital for years etched across his features. To every person in that room, he was a rags-to-riches business legend, a visionary CEO who'd grown the company's revenue year after year and expanded its footprint across the globe, a steady, devoted family man with a spotless public record and zero tabloid scandals, the perfect face of corporate leadership. No one in that glittering ballroom knew that beneath his polished exterior lay 3 years of ruthless plotting, marital fraud, and the systematic draining of our shared fortune, born purely out of unbridled greed. In every prior year's meeting, I would take my quiet reserved seat beside the podium, soft makeup and gentle, poised posture intact, sitting through every speech as his most polished, unassuming backdrop. After the formal presentations, I would pose for press photos alongside him, reinforcing the public narrative of a harmonious marriage and flourishing business to bolster the firm's market reputation. This year, I would not sit passively on the sidelines. Beneath the full gaze of every attendee, I stepped forward in thin stiletto heels, wrapped in a minimalist black velvet gown. Gone was the soft, compliant wife the world knew. I carried the sharp, unyielding precision of a top Wall Street analyst as I walked toward the stage, spine straight, unshakable authority radiating off me, no trace of hesitation or cowardice. A low murmur rippled instantly through the crowd. Every person present was stunned. They'd only ever known me as quiet, unassuming, happy to fade into the background. No one had witnessed this cold, unyielding version of me, sharp and unapologetically powerful. Every media camera swiveled my way in unison, shutters firing nonstop to capture this unforeseen disruption of a carefully staged event. Ethan's face darkened in an instant. Seated in the chief executive's chair, his fingers clenched hard around the printed speech in his grasp, knuckles blanching white. The easy composure he'd honed over decades of public appearances vanished in an instant, replaced by a flicker of well-concealed panic and wariness. He knew me far too well. Any deviation from my usual gentle demeanor was never a trivial tantrum. It signaled a meticulously planned, devastating takedown. He lowered his voice, warning me in a tone sharp with his usual dominance and menace, loud enough only for the two of us to hear. "Claire, sit down. Don't make a scene and ruin today's meeting." I paid him no heed at all. I walked straight to the center of the stage and took the wireless microphone handed to me by a staff member, my movements steady and unhurried, not the slightest tremor to betray me. I lifted my gaze to face the crowd of shareholders and investors filling every seat. My voice was clear, cool, and unshakable, cutting crisply through the venue's sound system to quiet every murmur and stir rippling through the room. "Excuse me for interrupting this annual report. Before Mr. Hale delivers his fiscal briefing and outlines the company's development roadmap, I need to share critical information bearing on this firm's reputation, shareholder rights, and foundational integrity with everyone present." Ethan's face turned a livid shade of crimson, no longer able to sustain his veneer of calm composure. He shot to his feet at once, reaching out to snatch the microphone from my grasp, his bearing fierce and overbearing as he attempted to force me to stop speaking. "Claire, you're delirious and emotionally unhinged. Leave this hall immediately." His shout rang out loud and unreserved, a deliberate ploy to paint me as hysterical and unreasonable before the crowd. He sought to strike first, strip me of my right to speak, and dismiss every word I might say as a petty emotional outburst stemming from marital strife. I only shifted my weight a little to the side, evading his grab with effortless poise. My cold gaze locked onto his panicked, unraveled eyes, every word firm and weighty as I laid bare the perfect mask he'd worn for more than a decade before hundreds of onlookers. I am not losing my temper, nor am I staging a spectacle. I stand here today not to bicker over marital affection, but to expose a 3-year-long, unethical, illegal scheme that blurs personal and corporate lines to every shareholder and investor who placed their trust in Hale Global Tech. A dead silence crashed over the entire venue. All the noise, restlessness, and hushed whispers vanished in an instant. You could hear a pin drop in the 1,000-seat ballroom. Every pair of eyes fixed rigidly on the stage, a tangled mix of shock, confusion, and disbelief washing over every face, no one daring to make a sound. I held the microphone steady, my tone measured and logically structured, free of superfluous sentiment or tearful melodrama. I laid out cold, unarguable facts step by step, unraveling every layer of his conspiracy. Ethan Hale, founder and CEO of Hale Global Tech, has, throughout his tenure, leveraged his marital status and executive authority to carry on a years-long extramarital affair with Lena Carter, an active full-time employee of his company. Worse still, his personal entanglement has become deeply intertwined with corporate asset operations. He is suspected of systematically siphoning marital joint assets, diverting affiliated corporate funds, and maliciously concealing, transferring, and retitling real estate owned jointly as husband and wife. Over the course of 3 years, he deployed sophisticated tactics including split fund transfers, falsified expense reimbursements, private property title re-registration, and risk control evasion to drain our shared wealth on a systemic scale, with total implicated assets exceeding $3 million. Every asset transfer was executed in a calculated, concealed manner, completed entirely without my knowledge, consent, or signature. His end goal, once the pending merger closed, was to force me out of our marriage with 0 assets to my name. Each sentence landed like a heavy hammer reverberating through the hall. Chaos erupted among the audience far more violently than before. Shareholders' faces contorted with shock, leaning forward in their seats, their eyes blazing with unmasked rage and alarm. Institutional investors hastily pulled up live market feeds and fiscal backends, rushing to audit the firm's recent capital flows and asset shifts. The 9 board members seated on the dais exchanged wide-eyed, grim glances, a wave of existential dread settling over all of them. For a public company midway through a transformative merger, one that relied entirely on capital market confidence and public goodwill, a founder exposed for moral corruption and alleged financial fraud was a fatal blow capable of collapsing the entire enterprise at its core. Ethan completely lost his composure, casting aside every trace of polished refinement. He roared at the top of his voice, his tone frayed with unbridled panic and hysteria. "This is all slander. Malicious, fabricated defamation. Claire, you are exacting revenge over private marital conflict to smear this company and disrupt capital markets. What you are doing is illegal. Whether this counts as defamation or sabotage will be proven by evidence." I watched his desperate, futile struggle with icy detachment and gestured toward Margaret's legal team, already standing by the projection booth at the rear of the hall. In the next heartbeat, the massive screen dominating the ballroom blazed to life. The first full set of exhibits was laid bare for 1,000 eyes to see. 3 full years of unredacted bank transfer ledgers, every line item receipt for luxury goods and international travel, monthly rental statements for the Soho apartment, official title modification filings for the 3 properties, government-stamped timestamp records, and internal legal audit trails. Every document bore official state watermarks, bank verification codes, and legally filed seals, authentic, clear, and impossible to forge or tamper with. Columns upon columns of data and paperwork reconstructed every hidden act of asset theft spanning 3 years, laying out in plain sight all proof of Ethan abusing his executive position and professional expertise to drain our shared fortune and fund his mistress. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, public sentiment exploding completely. The very investors who'd once admired his self-discipline, self-made rags-to-riches narrative now stared at him with nothing but cold disappointment and unvarnished contempt. Everyone finally saw the truth beneath his polished facade. This celebrated CEO was not only morally bankrupt, but cruel and underhanded, having built his wealth and renown by scheming against the woman who'd stood beside him for half his life. Ethan stiffened from head to toe, his face drained of all color, as if every ounce of strength had been ripped from his body. He stared fixedly at the damning evidence displayed on screen, his lips trembling faintly, unable to utter a single word of rebuttal. All his arrogance and domineering bearing crumbled away, leaving only abject, inescapable disgrace. I gave him no chance to recover. My voice cut through the silence once more, sealing off every avenue of escape and delivering the final blow. Paper bank trails are only the surface-level facts. I will now play full audio recordings capturing the pair's coordinated fraud, plans to destroy evidence, and premeditated scheme to drive me into a penniless divorce. The screen shifted to a new slide emblazoned with bold text, legally obtained third-party notarized unedited full recording. Immediately afterward, high-fidelity uncompressed audio echoed across every corner of the packed ballroom. Listeners heard Ethan's cold, calculating scheming, his meticulously layered plot lines, his total dismissal of my contributions, alongside Lena's arrogant jeers, unashamed boasting, and condescending certainty that I was weak and easily manipulated. Every line rang out crystal clear and unfiltered for all to hear. Once all assets are laundered and the merger finalizes, I'll file for divorce and leave her with nothing. 16 years of devotion will amount to 0. She's far too easy to manipulate, soft, tied to the home, with nowhere to turn. Even if she suspects something's off, she has no means to fight back. I've fully mastered the financial framework she built. Once I've exhausted her connections and expertise, I'll cast her aside entirely. You're the one who belongs by my side. Clip after clip of their plotted treachery and cutting remarks shattered the wholesome public persona he'd cultivated for over a decade. Live stream comment sections flooded with non-stop messages, public opinion reversing entirely overnight. The once lauded visionary entrepreneur and devoted family man was instantly rebranded as a calculating, ungrateful, vile fraudster. The second the audio cut off, live U.S. stock market tickers refreshed outside the venue. Hale Global Tech's share price plummeted vertically off a cliff, the green loss line careening downward without pause, the single-day drop blowing past 15 percentage points in mere seconds. Billions of dollars in market value evaporated in under a minute. Mass sell orders flooded the exchange. Retail investors dumped their shares in panic, institutional funds pulled out capital en masse. The capital market delivered its unflinching, brutal verdict. Every board member seated on the dais rose as one, their faces ashen. They immediately announced an indefinite adjournment of the annual meeting, launched a formal special audit into executive malfeasance, and called an emergency closed-door board session to draft resolutions for the CEO's removal and legal accountability proceedings. Chants of condemnation rose from every row of shareholders, demands for restitution, financial claims, and lawsuits echoing through the hall, drowning out every trace of the glory that had once belonged to Ethan. In the blink of an eye, he found himself abandoned by all, his corporate empire collapsing around him. Ethan stood alone beneath the harsh stage spotlights, disheveled and defeated, his frame trembling faintly. All the pride, vanity, and scheming ambition in his eyes shattered to dust, leaving only bone-deep despair and total collapse. The corporate kingdom he'd spent more than 10 years building, the 3-year predatory plot he'd carefully orchestrated, the reputation and career he'd valued above all else, all crumbled to complete ruin under the weight of the evidence I presented that day. He fixed his gaze hard on me, his voice rough and shaking, thick with desperate, unyielding resentment. "Claire, why must you destroy me completely? After 16 years together, do you not hold a shred of affection for what we shared?" I stood motionless at the center of blazing stage lights, my eyes empty of both love and hatred, calm and utterly detached. "You were the first to cast our bond aside. You wrapped 16 years of gentle pretense around me like a cage, then spent 3 years sharpening a blade to cut me down. You schemed away my youth, drained our shared fortune, erased every sacrifice I made, and set out to destroy my entire life. You never spared a single thought for our history. Everything I have done today is merely returning what you gave me, an act of justified self-defense. You wanted wealth, fame, and unrivaled prestige, while also robbing our marital assets and walking away scot-free. The world never offers such convenient, two-sided compromises. As the last word left my lips, I lifted a hand to power down the massive screen and turned to walk away. Behind me lay the shattered remains of a capital market myth, a crumpled false mask, and the bottomless abyss he dug for himself through unbridled greed. As for me, I had finally escaped the marital cage that had confined me for 16 years, shed the meek, docile persona forced upon me, and reclaimed my strength and sharp resolve. Manhattan's skyline blazed with endless glittering lights. After tonight, there would be no more Mrs. Hale. Only Claire, reborn from ruin, who had fought her way back to victory against all odds.